Welcome to the Harvest Series podcast, recorded here in Kaplankaya on the southwestern Aegean coast of Turkey during Harvest, an event gathering hundreds of curious minds. I could interview the most passionate and inspiring speakers, practitioners, and musicians. I hope you will enjoy this episode. What if everything you've been told about shoes was wrong? What if instead of protecting your feet, they actually were making them weaker? In this new episode of the Harvest Series podcast, recorded in Kaplankaya, we meet an entrepreneur who's been challenging the way we think about footwear. He comes from one of Britain's most iconic shoe-making families, yet he decided to break the mold by creating shoes designed to let our feet move, feel, and grow naturally. He's passionate about reconnecting us with nature, about sustainability, and about empowering us to walk through life a little closer to the ground. Galahad Clark, welcome to Harvest.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
How do you feel?
Well, I've just done 4 days at Harvest, so a combination of elation and, a little bit tired.
Yes. What was your favorite moment this year?
Oh, there were a lot of moments. It's such a combination of being able to swim in the beautiful Mediterranean, be intellectually stimulated, physically sort of turned inside out, and then, all kinds of spiritual practice as well. So it's hard to pin one thing. It's really the mélange of the whole thing that is quite remarkable.
Beautiful. So today I'd love to tell a bit of your story and maybe the one of your family legacy also in the end of the podcast. But first, let's talk about a little bit about the science and of our feet. Why create shoes like this one? Those are my shoes. Why create shoes that make people walk as if they're barefoot?
So, it starts with feet, of course. And the foot is an amazing piece of evolutionary engineering developed over more than 2 million years. And all of the body systems start in the feet: the skeletal system, the muscles and tendons system, and the nervous system is all fully present in the feet. And most modern shoes systematically almost undermine each one of those systems. So if the foot is not working well, then that has a kind of tremendous kinetic chain reaction up the body. Where if the foot is working well, everything else works better, because obviously all the pressure and force goes through our feet every day, thousands and thousands of steps a day. And so a good step versus a bad step has, tremendous impact through the whole body.
Can you tell me more about this? Because this is, I don't know, at least for me, something I didn't really think about my feet. You practice every part of your body, but the feet usually come last, and never think about the feet.
So yes, poorly taught even at medical school, the feet are kind of sort of slightly ignored. But the fact is they're really like hands. And if you were to injure your hands, you get tremendous rehab to get your hands working again. With feet, they kind of just cut off a toe or something. Whereas the feet deserve a lot more respect and a lot more love, let's say. So let's break it down to the three systems, yeah? So starting with the skeletal system, the bones, we have 28 bones in each foot. And most importantly, the big toe bone is 4 times as thick and 4 times as dense as the other toes. So it's designed to be the body's pivot and anchor.
He's the king.
It's the king. I call it the great toe.
The great toe, okay.
And if you think about it, most shoes take the great toe and they make it a lot less great. They push it up against the other toes. They suspend it in the air, whether it's really designed for all of the force and movement to go through the great toe. So most people have sort of deformed big toes, great toes, or not so great toes, pushed up against the other toes. And so they're not able to use that. And one of the common problems in people's feet is because the great toe is not being used, the energy goes through the other toes. And so you see a lot of problems with people's feet where too much pressure is going through the second and third toes. And that creates a lot of problems up the skeletal system and a lot of problems in the feet.
Okay, that's my case because I've been wearing a lot of heels in my 20s. Okay, so what are the consequences
you need to
of this?
make your big toe great again.
Okay, so
But if the big toe is really working, then obviously the postural alignment is much better.
can it come back?
It can come back
make
amazingly.
your big toe great again. Okay.
We're amazingly adaptive, right?
Okay.
It's a bit like having your arm in a cast or something. When you have your arm in a cast, everything gets weak and a bit deformed. But when you take the cast off, you can get it back just by using it again.
Okay.
And in fact, the research shows just by walking around barefoot for 6 months, you regain 60% strength in your feet.
Wow.
So
and how much time a day you walk barefoot?
Just normal, no special exercises, just either wearing barefoot shoes or...
Only with socks is okay, or you need to be really barefoot?
No, socks is good.
Socks is barefoot,
Yeah.
okay.
So let's come to the second big system, the muscles and tendons. So we're talking about strength. So
Okay.
there are literally hundreds of muscles and tendons in the feet. Lots and lots of little muscles. A lot of people talk about plantar fasciitis and things.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. If you don't use it, you lose it. And the foot is designed to splay and contract. The arch is designed to be really dynamic. Whereas nearly all shoes kind of lock the foot in place. Mm-hmm. So the muscles are not able to be used. So the foot is designed to absorb 50% of the shock in every step. Whereas if you kind of close up the foot and hold the foot tight and then sort of take long heel strides, you don't absorb the foot is not able to work, so you don't absorb any of the pressure. So you then need to absorb the pressure in the knees, in the hip, in the back. And so you have to compensate for not using your feet in the rest of your body.
Okay.
Makes sense, right?
It's funny because
Especially in running.
I've heard in my family, I was wearing another British, brand called Startrite, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Which are very tight.
They're very popular in Paris, yeah.
Yes,
they're
for
very
the
sort
little
of
girls.
shiny little
They're very
buckled
cute,
shoes.
But I think my mom was saying like it's good to have a tight for the kids to have tight shoes because they
It's
keep
crazy,
their feet,
right?
Yeah,
exactly.
That's
That's
we have
literally what
been
people say.
told.
Is like, you don't want... I hear that all the time, that I don't want my child to have big wide feet because then they're not going to be able to wear fashionable shoes when they're older.
Oh no, it was not for the fashion. It was more for to be able to, I think, for the skeleton on the opposite, like the Miss to have
to have
tight shoes to be able to stand up well, to learn how to walk properly.
Yeah.
Right.
And look, the science is black and white when it comes to kids, and to allow a kid's foot to develop naturally and be strong and healthy is kind of a no-brainer. And this myth of needing support and needing structure for everything else to work is a complete myth.
Okay. So
A child's foot, the bones in a child's foot don't fully calcify until the teenage years. So any sort of pressure or unnatural container you put the foot in, the bones literally deform to that shape. So most children in the Western world arrive in adulthood with literally weak, deformed feet because the foot hasn't been allowed to develop naturally.
Wow.
And that's why when you then just take off your shoes, your feet get stronger so quickly. And it's not because barefoot makes you stronger, it's because shoes make your feet weaker.
Incredible.
And so all you're doing is regaining that natural strength. And obviously if your feet are stronger and healthier, then it puts a lot less pressure on the rest of your body. Third system, possibly the most important system, your nervous system.
Yeah.
So the feet, like the hands, have hundreds of thousands of nerve endings. The part of your brain that gets information from your feet is the same size as the part of your brain that gets information from your hands. So we're designed to get a lot of sensory information from our feet. They're super sensory for a reason, right? The tickling and tortures all happen.
True.
So when we cut off the nerve endings, the brain gets bad information from the feet. And so when the brain is designed to get lots of information, but if it gets kind of inaccurate information from having padding or heels, then it makes bad decisions. It's a bit like anything in life. If you get bad information, then you make bad decisions.
That's why.
And so,
when I'm wearing heel, I make bad decisions then.
and actually they link walking around in padded shoes in a concrete world to brain degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, because the brain is not being fully used. Again, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Wow.
And the nervous system, it sort of goes up and down the spine. So they show a lot of when you're barefoot, your thoracic spine is is alive, as it were, right? And all the muscles and around the back all work much better or kind of come alive. Same with the brain itself. It's a sort of vitality. And the opposite is literally just walking around in padded shoes in a concrete world. So those three systems all start in the foot, and you can see how just a simple modern shoe takes away the big toe, stops all the muscles being used, and cuts off all the sensory feedback and information. So because of that, those three systems in the body all have to compensate in a very unnatural way.
That's crazy. And since when do we have all this scientific data about the feet?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit like a lot of other things, and I'm sure other podcasts you've been talking to, and how the way we're sort of re-understanding the way the biome works and circadian rhythms around sleep, and sort of modern science is just kind of rediscovering kind of what we always knew, and that a lot of these technological advancements of the 20th century, like the modern shoe industry, are kind of doing more harm than good. So a lot of the work in the 21st century is just to unravel a lot of the technology in the 20th century, and it's very much the case in the shoe industry.
Is that what inspired you, this science, to create Vivobarefoot shoes?
No, well, I was, as you said, I come from a long line of shoemakers, and I was interested in sustainable design and environmentalism. So I was making a sustainable design shoe brand, but then a childhood friend of mine came to me who was into postural alignment therapy, and he was getting injured a lot, playing a lot of sport. And he brought to me a pair of Nikes. He sliced the sole off and stitched a tennis racket cover on the bottom. And he said, "This is how shoes should be made." And he kind of introduced me the idea. I instinctively loved the idea. I was lucky to grow up by the seaside in England and spent a lot of my childhood barefoot. So I was like, sounds wonderful. And then we went on a kind of educational journey and down all that, and you'd be surprised how few people in the shoe industry know much about feet, about the anatomy of feet, the biomechanics of. I was lucky enough to meet some amazing educators, and there's lots of brilliant people who are obviously understanding this and unpacking this. And the more I learned, and the more so we started making some prototypes. So we started wearing them ourselves. We started educating ourselves, and it was a sort of theory and practice kind of started growing. We're like, oh my God, this is, how has the shoe industry possibly been allowed to get this far without this knowledge? Wow. And of course, it's always been there. Humans always made shoes like that up until we started horse riding. But we just lost our way, just forgot those basic, simple truths. And
why did we change our way with the horse riding?
So, we Homo sapiens, the tool makers, probably 100,000 years ago, one of the first tools that humans ever made was probably a pair of sandals, before we even made pots or used clay, because, one of the evolutionary big steps was figuring out the running, hunting. And those original humans, the sand bushmen in the Kalahari, they made eland skin sandals to protect their feet from the hot desert sand and the camel thorns. And they would run for 8 hours to sort of hunt down an eland.
So it was skin animal? Or
it was just a simple animal skin sandal.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a whole story around that. And I know we don't have much time, so...
Yeah.
But, that's when we started eating more meat, and our brains started to grow, and so on and so forth. And then obviously we got all the wonderful ideas to travel around the world, and wherever humans went, they made shoes, but they always made person by person, foot by foot, from the local animal skins, basically. So the first peoples of Europe was maybe deer skins and buffalo skin sandals in India. You go up to the Arctic and the Sami people making reindeer skin moccasins. The first peoples in America would have been wearing bison skin moccasins, etc., etc. So we always made simple foot coverings like second skin, perfect barefoot shoes. But then, when we invented saddled horse riding and created stirrups, we started to make shoes that were pointy so we could easily get safety, the shoes in the stirrups and the heels to stop the feet coming out of the stirrups.
Okay. That's the invention of the heels.
So, and then, in Europe, to have a horse was a tremendous high status aristocratic thing. So to have horse riding shoes was also the kind of cool thing to have and the high status thing to have. So the sort of pointy heeled horse riding shoe is effectively what the modern shoe industry still is. And Nike famously in the 1960s, they came along and the first Nikes were actually flat and wide shoes. And Bill Bowerman, one of the founders of Nike, was really into barefoot and barefoot training, and he was a biomechanist. But they kind of got the whole jogging booms going in America. It was a kind of new thing in the 60s for people to go jogging. And but the people started getting injured. And so they famously got in a group of 10 doctors and said, what's happening? We're making these lovely, lightweight, wonderful running shoes for people to go jogging, and lots of people are getting injured. And the doctors said, look, the problem is everybody is going to work every day in pointy-heeled shoes, which was a sort of, what everybody did, and a lot of people still do. So it's too big a change from the pointy-heeled shoes to the flat Nikes. So you need to make your Nikes more like the pointy-heeled shoes.
And what's the real problem, you think?
Well, it was a real thing, and it is a problem.
The change is a problem.
The change is a challenge for sure, because your Achilles tendon gets shorter, or the tendons get shorter, and so Nike started to put technology into their shoes to make a heel,
to adapt to the tight shoes the people were wearing during the day,
make them a bit more pointy, put the pronation control and all the technology and the airbags and gels and whatever, and so the modern technology shoe industry is basically horse riding shoes, right? And all the technology in shoes is there to solve problems caused by shoes.
And
so
we
it's kind of this
completely
matrix.
The sight of the function of a shoe.
Lost completely and most importantly, lost sight of the function of feet.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And most people in the shoe industry don't know about feet.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy thing. Like you hear, again, to talk about kids, like I hear, someone was telling me the other day, but we need to make a different type of kids shoe in Italy than in Germany because the kids have different shaped feet.
Is that possible?
Of course not.
Of course.
They have different shaped feet because it's a sort of self-fulfilling thing. So, if all the kids in Italy wear a certain type of shaped shoe, then you need to kind of keep making that same shape of shoe to fit their shoe-shaped feet into the shoes.
The bunion,
yes,
or something like this. I don't know what's the real name.
Bunion's the right word, Hallux Vegas. And so a lot of people say this is genetic. What's genetic is wide feet.
Okay.
So the bunion is definitely not genetic.
They grow because of the shoes.
They grow because of the shoes.
Okay,
of course,
and then you must have painful surgery. If you have bunion and you wear and you're barefoot for 6 months, can you improve it?
It depends how bad it is, but it changes for sure.
Okay.
It takes time, and sometimes with the bunion you need to sort of decalcify the joints and get the foot working again. But in America they spend $30 billion a year on foot surgery. Which is quite a lot more than they spend on shoes.
Wow.
And so we live in this kind of crazy world where shoes are kind of damaging people's feet, and then people spending more money on fixing their feet caused by the shoes than just, wearing healthy shoes in the first place. And it starts with kids.
Do you have some reports that people could read about this?
Or lots, yeah. There's
a lot. You will give me in the...
happy to share the...
Yes, in the show notes.
Absolutely.
So if people want to inform themselves about this, because we're not really aware of, I was not at least.
I mean, for me, it starts with kids, and it also ends with elderly people as well. And we also spend billions of dollars from old people falling over. And one of the other things the science shows is the balance increases by up to 40% by just wearing barefoot shoes compared to, let's say, a pair of padded Skechers or something. And a lot of old people wearing things like Skechers. And so, if you, just in England alone, I think they spend £3 billion on old people falling over.
Wow.
So if you reduce this by 10%, it's worth hundreds of millions. And yet, so many old people are walking around in super unstable, wobbly shoes. If they just walked around much more barefoot, their balance would improve by 40%.
Incredible. Okay. Me, I like to wear heels for my interviews or for some time.
Yeah.
So what's the solution? If I wear heel, for example, for 4 hours a day,
yeah,
and then I walk barefoot.
Yeah, look, I'm never, and so I say, like, when I say kids and elderly people, in some ways, I would say that they kind of should be barefoot most of the time.
Most of the time,
like adults in the peacocking of their lives, we drink alcohol and we do unhealthy things and whatever, right? And we but most of the time consciously.
Okay.
So I never sort of be dogmatic about you only must wear barefoot shoes, and women look beautiful in heels, and they're elegant, and there's lots of tribal ceremonial costumes and things that people wear all over the world for hundreds of thousands of years. So yeah, I'd just say when you're not wearing heels, try to be barefoot as much as possible. You'll get stronger, healthier feet. So when you are in heels, you'll be better in heels. You'll be able to dance better, move better. Because having stronger feet, you'll be better in heels.
Okay. And running to do the sport, is it okay? Because another thing I've heard is it's not good to run barefoot because you need a pillow.
Well, obviously a myth, because if that was the case, then we wouldn't be here, because as we said, our ancestors were running 8 hours a day to hunt down eland on very hard, packed African savannas, hard as concrete.
Yeah.
And we were able to do that for thousands of years and if we were injured, we would be food. So obviously humans are able to run with no technology perfectly well. In fact, we're born to run. That's what separates us as this ability to work as groups, to communicate, and our endurance ability, because we don't have big teeth. We're not particularly strong. We don't have big claws. Our only ability is endurance and communication and being able to work as a group. So what I would say about running is, obviously, if you're used to running in padded modern shoes, then the transition back to barefoot running should be a slow one.
Okay, good to know. Right?
Walk before you run.
Okay.
Allow the muscles to build up again. Like going back to the having your arm in a cast analogy, when you take the cast off, you don't go and play tennis the next day straight away. You take some time for the arm to get working again. Same with the feet. And look, the big problem with padded shoes is it allows us to take too long steps. So if I'm trying to get from A to B, let's say 100 meters, and then obviously the less steps I take, the lower the metabolic cost. So you kind of, and so you take as a kind of long steps as your body allows you to do. And when you put padded shoes on it, you can take even longer steps, especially when running. And this kind of overstriding is the big problem in modern movement. If you were to walk completely barefoot across this hard floor here, you would take more steps.
Than with
especially if you're running, than an Air Jordan, right?
Okay.
And so actually just reducing the amount of steps you take is kind of one of the natural things that happen if your brain gets accurate information from your feet. And actually then you go into a springy rhythm and things, right? So, we always talk about posture, rhythm, relax is the sort of essence of healthy natural movement. There's an upright posture, put your head above your hips, above your feet. And actually, if you see a 5-year-old like running around a swimming pool, they're barefoot, they're laughing, they're relaxed. Because the head is so heavy and the long spine is so spindly, they have to put their head directly above their hips, otherwise they fall over as a kid. So they have perfect posture. They take lots and lots of little steps, and they're relaxed. They're laughing. They're having fun, and that is healthy, natural movement. And as adults, then they go to school. Then they wear like tight shoes. They're told to sit down, shut up. They develop a bad posture. The shoes allow them to do bad movement habits, and we arrive in adulthood. And if you see people like running in the park, they're like leaning forward. Wow. They're like, using too many muscles. They're grinding it out. If you watch an elite sort of East African marathon runner, they run like this, like perfect posture, very quick rhythm. And in fact, all the fastest world records from, I think, 800 meters up is all held by humans that grew up barefoot, basically in East Africa. Okay. And they spent, their childhood sort of running to 10, 15 miles to school there and back. Altitude helped. I
had no idea.
And your dear colleague Joel knows about all of that. And I've spent a lot of time in those East African highlands, and it's just it's amazing the culture of the kids running around, and obviously then the shoes come in, and it's actually it's really interesting to see how these beautiful, healthy, amazing East African athletes, their feet then get deformed by the big shoe deals.
Crazy. What about flip-flops?
Flip-flops is relatively good because at least it's your foot's wide and it's flat. But because it's spongy, you get less good sensory feedback. So the brain being able to get information from the feet is a really important aspect. So flip-flops is like 2 out of 3.
If there is, for example, a stone on the floor, or you would need to feel it.
Yeah, and more importantly, like depending on how fast you're moving. So if I'm walking, and let's say I'm 100 kilograms, I'm a little bit less. But just for simplicity's sake, every step is 100 kilograms of force going through my body. When I start running, it becomes 200 kilograms going through each step, and when I run really fast, it can be 300 kilograms. There's a lot of pressure going through my body. So, like I was saying, if the brain can register that force, then it will do the appropriate level of stride length. Whereas even in flip-flops, the brain's kind of not getting good information. It's like having a crash helmet on. Okay. And if I whack you with a crash helmet on, maybe you kind of, it's okay, it doesn't hurt. But actually your brain, it's not good for your brain.
Okay.
It's the same kind of with shoes. Whereas if you take the helmet off and I whack you again on the head, you'll be.
I won't like it at all.
You won't like it at all.
Okay.
Same with the feet.
So that's why you're creating flip-flops also, new flip-flops, new kind of flip-flops?
So we creating, look, the shoe industry is a disaster for the world. It's a disaster for human health, and it's a disaster for planetary health, the modern shoe industry, right? We make...
Oh, you're just depressing me and at the same time giving me hope.
I'm going to give you hope, right? But I'll start with depressing, right?
Yeah, okay.
So we make 25 billion pairs of shoes every year, 90% made in Asia, in long, cheap labor, subtractive supply chains. The shoes, by definition, are unhealthy. Pretty much all of them are unhealthy, like they restrict the foot, like we've been talking about. And they end up kind of people buy them like commodities, right? They buy them, they don't fit that well, they throw them away, they buy a new pair. The average American buys 7 pairs of shoes every year. Nearly all of them end up in landfill. They're made, most shoes are made from sort of toxic petrochemical plastics and foams. The leather is tanned with heavy metals, terribly carcinogenic. It's a disaster, right?
Okay.
Ruining human health, ruining the planet.
Right.
10,000 years ago, we made shoes person by person, foot by foot, from the local sustainable materials. They would be repaired, look after them. They probably last, almost be like a lifetime. And we believe that we need to get back to how we made shoes 10,000 years ago, because the truth is, no matter what, even when the shoes we make, they don't fit perfectly everybody, because the variety of foot shape is profound. So if you take a size 38 and you look at 1 million foot scans of size 38, you get a huge variety of shape within that. So by definition, a very small percentage of people are fitting into a one-shaped shoe.
Okay.
Right? So most people are wearing badly fitting shoes. So can we use modern technology a little bit to help us get back to wearing really good fitting shoes? And, so it's not possible probably to go to your local cobbler and stand on an animal skin and someone to draw around. Although in the Hermès store in Rue Saint-Honoré,
they do that.
They still do that.
Yeah.
And actually, I went and worked in that workshop.
Really? Okay.
And it's amazing. They kind of make beautiful bespoke shoes, and they make a beautiful pair of shoes, and then they cut it open. And they look how the foot is in the shoe, and then they adjust it.
Wow.
And then you get your personal shape. It's 2,000 euros for a pair. So it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But, and actually, even they're a bit too tight.
A bit too tight.
And heeled.
Okay. But I'm sure you could request.
You can do whatever.
Yeah.
It's a good. Maybe we could teach people to request.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Beautiful John Lobb Hermès barefoot shoes. It's a good idea. There's probably some people listening to this podcast that probably get their shoes made there, so that's
good
what
for
they
the
should
world.
do. Flat, wide, and flexible.
Yeah.
So anyway, so now with mobile phones, we have scanning technology in the phones, LiDAR scanning, where you can use your phone to scan your foot, and then with a good foot scan, we can then make using additive manufacturing instead of subtractive manufacturing, because when we make shoes on these long Asian supply chains, it's subtractive, it's cutting away stuff and creating lots of waste. Whereas if you use additive manufacturing technology, it's just creating, and so there's no waste, person by person, foot by foot. And so the shoe really can fit people's feet again. And it's a second skin, and additive manufacturing lends itself to just second skin shoemaking. So we just launched what we call Vivobarefoot, which is being able to do this second skin shoemaking, basically. Tell
me more now about the Clark's family, because you're Galahad Clark from the Clark family. Tell me more about the story. I think I used to have a pair of Clarks in the 80s or 90s probably, but they were kind of flat also.
Yeah, so Clark's is like a few businesses in England is a Quaker business, because and Quakers and the whole theme
Quakers,
Quakers, and the whole theme of Harvest this year is courage and talking truth to power. And when Britain went through the Reformation and King Henry VIII got rid of the Catholic Church in Britain, there was a kind of free-for-all of religion in the 17th century in England. And Quakers was one of the religious groups that kind of came up. And Quakers said, we don't need the church, we don't need priests, everybody can have a direct connection to God. And they refused to swear oaths. You used to have to swear an oath to the king or to the church.
It's a bit rebellious.
And so as a result, they were not allowed to go to university. They were not allowed to participate in a lot of society. So they kind of set up their own communities. And my forefathers were sheep farmers. So they made the first sheepskin shoe in 1825, exactly 200 years ago, and built a wonderful business off the back of that. And these Quaker businesses were wonderful businesses. They really looked after the community. They had a very low pay differential from the top paid worker to the lowest paid worker. All the profits were reinvested back in the community and innovation, and they really saw themselves as a service to society. And they got a good reputation because it was very fair trading, very high quality. It was business almost for a higher purpose, not just short-term capitalism. And so I saw this beautiful business as a kid. And it was in the 90s that this kind of new shareholder capitalism and sort of, this new sort of financial markets.
Has been sold Clark's was sold.
It was taken over by outside management. The family kind of started fighting, basically.
Okay, too bad. Okay.
And so I saw outside management come into Clark's in the 90s, and I witnessed what was a beautiful business with amazing values get changed by short-term, sort of modern capitalist thinking. And it was so sad to see a beautiful business sort of go from being something that was really a wonderful sort of service to society to something that became just a sort of bit of a money-making machine again. So that was quite a big motivation for starting my own business. And we tried to sell barefoot to Clark's. And actually, we got really close with one guy in America.
No way, okay.
And they were going to do a whole Clark's barefoot thing. We tried with a couple of other big shoe companies as well, because we thought this is much bigger than us. We can never do this justice. And, you know, the constant response was, the consumer is not ready for this.
Okay.
You know, people still need fashionable. And that's true. Obviously, as we sit here today, I've been doing this for nearly 15 years. It's not mainstream yet.
Yeah. But maybe it's going to be more mainstream now that they're aware of this kind of stuff. Definitely, I'm going to be more barefoot after listening to you.
That's all, yeah. Just put your feet on the ground and you'll be healthier and happier. And I really believe that if the world just put their feet on the earth, and it's kind of a great act of solidarity. We're one people standing on one earth with 2 feet. And it's the great connecting thing between humans and earth and each other. Can feel her electricity, her power. We can feel changes in climate, and you can, you know, and the ultimate act of disconnection from Earth is to put a big bit of padding between yourself and the Earth, and you lose touch with her. And when you feel her and walk with her, you think about her differently, right? You want to look after her and connect with her. So
beautiful. Last question of this interview, Galahad. What's the most courageous thing you've ever done or you've ever had to do in your personal or professional life?
Well, I think probably just, you know, ultimately when we made I was doing some other shoe businesses, you know, when we kind of got the barefoot knowledge and when we kind of failed to persuade the big shoe companies to do barefoot in 2012, we said, okay, fuck it, we got to do this ourselves. And so we stopped. Everything else I was doing was much more profitable and much more successful, and we kind of went for it in barefoot. And I personally went bankrupt basically in 2013, 2014, because this new research was coming out of Harvard, so we thought, oh my God, this is it. And so we went for it, right? And basically the research never made any media impact, and so it's been a long, slow struggle, and but I was all in, and I think, you know, to be all in and to be long-term thinking, and now, you know, my mindset is the business is you know, doing well, and, you know, I'm surviving now, but even thriving from 4 days at harvest.
Thank you.
But, you know, I realized that probably, you know, the world maybe is not going to go completely barefoot in my lifetime. So, you know, it's good to just have a perspective beyond one's lifetime, that the short time we get on this earth, I'll do my best to put people's feet back on the earth, but probably, you know, might not get all the way. So it's okay I can console myself that this is a more than lifetime mission.
Wow. I'm personally going to be more barefoot, that's for sure. Yeah. And thank you for sharing your journey and so much insight and information that
it's
I
pleasure.
didn't know before.
Yeah.
Wow.
Less shoe, more you.
Sorry?
It's less shoe, more you.
Yeah.
People always say, what's the magic? Why do I feel so good? Why is my back feeling so good? I don't have any more knee pain? There's no magic in the shoes, right? The shoe is it's like anti-technology shoes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's actually just allowing you to be you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Galahad. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Harvest Series podcast recorded in Casablanca. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to have some more